Hi, and welcome back. Today, we're going to get a little personal. We're going to talk about something everybody deals with and few people want to discuss. Let's call it Humanure. So dealing with bathrooms and human waste becomes an issue in a lot of situations. Everybody deals with it every day, but when it comes to boondocking in an RV with no septic system, or perhaps campsites that have no bathroom facilities, horse barns that need a place to use the restroom for boarders or visitors and don't want them in the house, lots of reasons that you may need a quick and easy bathroom that's not attached to a septic system. This is the perfect solution. It's a compost bucket toilet, and you really only need 3 or 4 things to get started. Now, before you get into this, I do want to encourage you to check with your state regulations. Some states don't allow this process, unfortunately, but our state thankfully does. There's just regulations we have to abide by. So for example, we have to be so far from a water source or a running creek or a pond. We have to be so far from a property line, so many feet distance. And when we dispose of it, that's really what they're most concerned about. So we have a designated compost pile that we dump these buckets into. That pile, by our state code, cannot be used for anything that grows on the ground that is edible. So I can't use it in my garden. Even though it is actually a very good compost a year from now, or even 6 or 8 months from now, that's not allowed. But you can allow it to break down and use it to fertilize a pasture or an orchard somewhere where edible foods don't grow directly off the ground and can't be contaminated in any way. So it's an excellent option. No flies, no smell if you do it right. So first you need just a basic 5-gallon bucket, and then you need some type of toilet seat option. Now, you can get creative here. You can get an actual toilet seat and build a box, kind of like we've done here. You can also buy rubber rings that just sit on top of a 5-gallon bucket, kind of like a lid with a hole in the middle. You can design something yourself. Really doesn't matter. You just want to make that rim a little more comfortable. You need a weatherproof box. These are great for holding toilet paper and keeping it out of the rain or humidity. And then you need another bucket full of sawdust. Now, we source our sawdust from our lumber mill, our planer, pretty much all the woodworking we do around here, and we've got plenty of it. But you can also get it from lumber yards. You can buy shavings at any farm store for like horse bedding and such. One thing we found about that though, the finer you can get it, the better. The more absorbent it is and the faster it breaks down. So we try to avoid the big flakes if we can. Now, if for some reason you run short of sawdust and you need something in a pinch, really any type of carbonaceous material will work. We have used a mixture of sand and leaves or straw and hay. That just doesn't break down quite as quickly. So we try not to do that very often. Sawdust is definitely the best option we've found. Now, how do you get started here? So, obviously, you've got your toilet, you've got your bucket. What we do is use just a basic animal feed scoop that's kind of set aside for this purpose. We start our bucket with 2 scoops of sawdust, roughly. It's not really an exact science. That puts a nice base of carbon at the bottom of the 5-gallon bucket. After that, you can use your imagination. When we have visitors not familiar with this system, we basically say, if it's liquid waste, put 1 more scoop on top. If it's solid waste, put 2. Pretty easy rule to live by, and it works really well. By the time this bucket is full, usually a couple days for our family. If we have a single person using it for some reason, like a visitor, then it may take up to a week. But once the bucket is getting full, it's already starting to break down and compost, and the waste inside, honestly, is becoming unidentifiable already. It's a very fast process. We've actually used a compost bucket toilet just out in the open woods, although it was secluded by the brush that surrounded it, so it was still private. At our last farm, we actually had a really nicely constructed and very comfortable outhouse that we designed for our visitors. We had a lot of tours and clinics, and so our visitors used this feature, and we never had any trouble with it or with them figuring out the system, because we simply put a little kind of a sign there in the outhouse that explained it. We found this little pop-up pod on Amazon.com. I think it was about $22. And it has served us well during our boondocking time here, because it gives us a little bit of privacy and takes care of our family's needs. So admittedly, the weather's turning chilly. We have rainy days, rainy nights, and you know, we have this black hose behind me that you may see in some of our videos, and I'm sure people wonder, well, you're probably just using the camper. So here's how we handle things. The pop-up pod and the compost bucket toilet is our primary bathroom. And whenever possible, that's what the family uses. But there are occasions when, let's say the baby can't make it out, or it's the middle of the night and it's, you know, dropping into the 20s now. Nobody wants to actually go outside to the pod to use it. So yes, we do occasionally use our RV toilet. However, what we've done to kind of compromise on that is we do not use chemicals in the toilet, with the exception of apple cider vinegar. That does help clean and sterilize in between uses. And this pipe you see is actually for our gray water. So the gray water is simply from showers, brushing teeth, sinks, so forth. Not a problem. We've built a compost pile down the hill behind me for that gray water to go. Now the black water, which is your actual human waste from the toilet, if that starts to build up, we have the option of manually emptying into a bucket. Not the most fun task on earth, and thankfully I have a husband who's willing to handle that for me. But the most important and critical part is to mix that with more of the sawdust we talked about. You've got to mix that waste that is full of nitrogen with enough carbon to balance it out. And by doing so, you'll start the composting process. We can then take that bucket of waste and sawdust mixed and go dump it on the compost pile with the pod compost. So it all works, and it just kind of becomes part of the daily tasks. You get used to it, and it's a wonderful option. If you'd like more information about this, there's actually an excellent resource. It's called the Humanure Handbook, and you can buy it at many bookstores. But it is just chock full of information on how to stay safe, how to be hygienic, how to utilize your compost, and basically how to capitalize on some pretty serious nutrition for the ground. So I encourage you to get that book and learn more. Otherwise, that wraps it up for this week. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to do so, and feel free to leave a comment. See you later.